Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1139B, and today's date is November 29th, 2016, and the title of the episode is Something Evil is Headed Our Way. Missing nuclear material might be used to create. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, Obama is very concerned about his legacy, and if we look back in time at what he's done, well, he hasn't had too many positive things. I mean, if we look at the Affordable Care Act, that is a complete failure. If we look at his drone policy, well, that's also a failure. Thousands of innocent men and women and children, well, they've been killed by drones. Obama justified targeting killings under the pretext of wars that were never declared. He tried to pass the TPP, the TTIP. Thank God it didn't. But that also failed. In 2009, he said that he was going to close the detention camp by January 22nd, 2010. That didn't happen. It remains open. Libya is a complete failure. Hillary Clinton was Obama's Secretary of State. He is responsible for her failures, and Libya was terrible. The NSA spying failure. Obama embraced and extended the illegal spying tactics of the Bush administration, said he was going to overhaul it. He didn't. And Edward Snowden actually called those individuals out on it, saying that, yes, the U.S. government is spying on the American people. His foreign policy that has to do with Russia, that is a complete failure. Actually, Obama, the neocons, the central bank, they're trying to push war with Russia. And we can see right now, the only thing that he has left is the economy. And that is built on one gigantic illusion. And he doesn't want the economy to come down during his presidency. And that's why in the last couple of weeks, moving towards the end of this year, we've seen the economy improve dramatically. All the statistical numbers look incredible at this point. But we know the truth. This is why we've been tracking. This is why we've been following it. This is why we've been looking at it. So we all can understand that this just didn't come out of the blue. That this just didn't happen when they tell us that the economy collapsed and it's Trump's fault. Or it's another country's cyber attack that hit the financial institutions and this is why the economy is failing. We will know because we've been following it. We've been recording it. We've been watching it, analyzing it. Understanding that, no, this is not what's happening. Actually, this is what they did back in 2008 when they were looking at the subprime securities. They were saying, this is impossible. This stuff is junk. This cannot be AAA. This is going to crash. They knew the truth. But the corporate media, the central banks, the U.S. government, they weren't telling the truth to the people. They were telling everyone everything's fine. Nothing to worry about. Everything's contained. Well, Trump, he just came out and he picked Tom Price as the HHS secretary. Now, he is an orthopedic surgeon from Georgia, and he is a critic of Obamacare. And we will have to see if he moves forward with dismantling and getting rid of Obamacare. Actually, he needs to start with getting rid of the penalty on individuals who can't afford these high premiums. We can see at this point that Obamacare is not a benefit to the people whatsoever. Obamacare costs a lot of money. Actually, there's no more competition because when you string all the insurance companies together and people are forced into a system, where's the competition? Why would they want to bring premiums lower? Actually, when they're all working together, they bring premiums higher. This is why they used to break up monopolies and create smaller companies. What Obama did was he created one gigantic monopoly with individual companies. And they all agreed that, guess what? this is going to be the premiums. And no one will do anything else except raise them all together. And we can see this is exactly what's been happening. Out in the Philippines, we understand that the U.S. government, the central bankers, the shadow government, well, they were eventually going to force Duterte out of office. And we can see already they're starting their process of creating fear in the country. We see there was a market explosion on September 3rd, and the Philippine authorities said, it was the Islamic State, Islamic militants. And we can see that there was an IED found near the U.S. Embassy in Philippines on November 28th. And that was to scare everyone, saying, it looks like the Islamic State is in the country. And eventually what's going to happen is the United States is going to call for personnel to leave the country because it's getting too dangerous. And we also see that the Philippine President Duterte's advanced motorcade, well, they were attacked by Islamic State militants once again, where they blew up the motorcade on the road they were traveling. And this was done using an IED, and they detonated it. And at least 7 members of the Philippines President Duterte's security team were injured. And Duterte's out there saying, listen, you're not going to scare me. I will travel the same road. I will do the same thing I always do. Maybe it's not a smart thing to do, but he's showing that he cannot be pushed around. And this is what the U.S. government central bankers are doing right now. They're sending him a message. Do what we say or else. We see Obama has created a new Al-Qaeda out of thin air to justify his war in Somalia. And this article was published out of New York Times this past Sunday, which demonstrates how out of control and unconstitutional America's foreign policy has become. Obama is out there expanding his war throughout the region of Somalia. They created Shabab, the Islamist militant group in Somalia, and he is using the September 11, 2001 authorization from Congress to go after this terrorist group, saying they are part of Al-Qaeda, but they didn't exist prior to 9/11. This is brand new. But you can see right now, the shadow government, the central bankers, they've been using this authorization for war going back to 2001 for everything. And Congress needs to stop this, because this is not what this was about. This was about going into Afghanistan, which was fake, phony, and false to begin with, because we know Al-Qaeda was made and created and funded by the United States government, the central bankers. But they use this to get into different countries, and they're still doing it. And this needs to be shut down. We see the Turkish parliament. Well, they endorsed the Turkish-Russian Stream deal ratification. And it looks like right now the Turkish Stream gas pipeline, they're going to begin constructing this, and they're going to be supplying gas into Europe. This is why the United States government central bankers took a hold of Ukraine. I mean, one of the reasons they did this, because they wanted to have control of the gas flowing into Europe. They didn't want Russia to have control over this. So Russia decided, you know something, we're not going to be supplying the gas through Ukraine. We're going to go around Ukraine, make a deal with Turkey, go through Greece and other countries up to Europe, and we will supply them with gas from Russia. And this is what the United States government central bankers have been trying to stop. This is why we see a lot of these countries having regime change. This is why we see the United States government central bankers using terrorism in these different areas, because this is what they've been trying to do. Because you have to remember, they've been trying to keep their system alive, and that's the petrodollar system. And it benefits them. They make a lot of money. They become very wealthy. They gain power, while the people in the United States and around the world, the majority suffer from this system. And as the system comes to its end, more and more people suffer from it. Some people don't see it right away, but when they start losing a job, they can't find a job. The dollar is devalued, and the cost of living, the cost of food, cost of everything else goes up, and you can't afford it. That's when you see how bad this system is. And they know that the system is at its end game, and they're trying to extract as much wealth as they possibly can until the system implodes. And what they would like to do once it implodes is to restart it. Now they need a cover story to explain why the system has to be restarted, why it failed. And this is why they've been planning to go to war. This is why they've been using cyber attacks. This is why they've been using the Islamic State, warning us about events, because eventually they will use an event. They will create something where people will be shocked, and they will blame it on another country or group. Now, a couple reports ago, we talked about how Egypt was bringing in military assets into Syria. And finally, we see that Egypt has made a decision. And the decision is not something that Washington is going to like. The U.S. government, the central bankers, the shadow government, because they've taken a clear stance on Syria. Egyptian President al-Sisi, well, he publicly affirmed his support for the forces of the Syrian President al-Assad. And we can see right now they are moving closer with Russia. They have backed the Russian motion calling for a ceasefire in Syria. And we can see right now they are siding with Assad. We see that Turkey, well, Erdogan just came out and said, listen, we entered Syria in order to end the reign of Assad. They weren't really there for the Islamic State. That wasn't really their focus, because when they moved into the country illegally on October 2016, when they actually invaded Syria, they went after not the Islamic State, but the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces near the border. And we can see right now that Syria at this point, they are pushing the terrorists out of the country. They have almost taken back Aleppo. And something very interesting with Turkey, because we know they're operating Euphrates Shield, and Erdogan is continually taking more and more of the land. And he started in the beginning very slowly, saying we're going after the Islamic State. But he expanded the scope of his safe haven over 5,000 square kilometers inside of Syria. And it's getting larger and larger. He's even building a Turkish military base on Syrian territory. Russia now stepped up and said, okay, enough is enough. They're drawing a red line. Now, of course, they let Turkey do what they needed to do. They watched, they saw their actions, and they realized they weren't going after the Islamic State, just like the United States government central bankers. They weren't going after the Islamic State, and Russia now has said to Erdogan, enough is enough. We will see what happens, because we can see that Erdogan has been trying to use false flags to say that Syria is attacking his forces because he wants something to get started here. He wants to initiate Article 5 to have NATO come into the battle. But when we look at what has been going on in Aleppo, the terrorists are completely surrounded now. And Assad, at this point, he's pretty much has Aleppo. Now, the mainstream media is out there, and they're saying that all these citizens, they're escaping Assad forces, they're running for their lives. 16,000 people are nervous. This is coming out of The Independent. Russia claims Aleppo is being liberated as more than 16,000 people flee cities' slow descent into hell. Well, what they didn't mention is that these individuals are fleeing where the terrorists are fighting, and they're moving into the government-held areas. And people are very happy that the government and Russia are liberating these areas. And we can see at this point is that these media outlets, they continually use fake news over and over and over. For example, during the Ohio State attack, which they broadcasted that it was an active shooter, they've shot many people, they're all heading to the hospital. All of it was fake. But what is very interesting about all this is how quickly the fake news spreads. Every corporate media channel picked up on it. The gun control people picked up on it and said, this is why we need stricter gun laws. They were all out there. Just go on Google, type it in, and you will see headline after a headline after a headline, and the fake news just went viral. Now, the corporate media did no fact-checking. Where were they getting their news from? Well, most likely from the authorities, because we know the FBI, they were on site. Did someone see something? Did the operation go sour? Well, during this whole thing, Rita Katz from Site Intelligence, we know this is a propaganda outlet, she was out there saying, no, this looks like the hallmarks of the Islamic State and what they promised, knife attacks. Well, it was a butcher's knife. And we can see right now that they're out there saying that this individual, well, yes, he's part of the Islamic State. And they're saying that he came out saying that I am sick and tired of seeing my fellow Muslim brothers and sisters being killed and tortured everywhere. I can't take it anymore. America, stop interfering with our countries. If you want Muslims to stop carrying lone wolf attacks, then stop what you're doing in other countries. Well, how many lone wolf attacks are there? Not many. So this right there seems to be propaganda. But Josh Earnest was out there and he warns Russia that this kind of violence and chaos in Syria only fuels extremism in Syria and around the world. So Russia better stop what they're doing inside of Syria. Well, no. Russia is destroying the terrorists. The United States created the terrorists. And again, they're blaming Russia for all of this. And we can see right now that these individuals, they want an event. They want war. And you can see they haven't let up. They're still trying to push Trump into pushing their policies towards Russia. Russian aggression, Russia's bad, don't talk to Putin. They're continually doing this because they want Russia as an enemy. They want to create an event. And I do believe they're going to push an event because think about it. If they create an event, most likely they can get Trump on board. Because what is he going to do? Come out and say it's fake? Unless he has incredible proof, he's going to go along with it. Because his advisors and everyone else that's in there is going to tell him that, yes, this is who we were attacked by. Until he can get proof, but no one's going to give him this proof. And the people around the world, around the country and around the world are going to be looking to him saying, what are you going to do? I'm not saying that he might go along with it or not go along with it, but we can see this is how the shadow government, the central bankers are thinking. If we can have some type of an event, we can push him into this. And we know that that Trump does not like the Iranian deal. He thinks that Iran is behind a lot of the terrorism. And I know a lot of people are going to say, yes, they are part of the terrorism. They're all part of it. But we need to look at something very interesting. Is that the United States had regime change in Iran. Iran took back their country. The United States placed sanctions on Iran. The United States said, okay, we don't want Iran creating a nuclear weapon. Now, they're part of the IAEA, They do inspections all the time. There was never any proof that they were creating any type of nuclear weapon. And the United States decided, let's have peace talks, a P5+1. All other countries joined in on this. Because we know that the United States government, the central bankers, the shadow governments, they don't like going after countries that have nuclear weapons. Very difficult to have regime change and to do anything in those type of countries. To keep nuclear weapons out of the hands of Iranian, this was the perfect deal. The IAEA and all these countries will be looking at Iran, and you will not be allowed to create any type of nuclear weapons. And if you don't create a nuclear weapon, we will remove the sanctions. Think about what they just did here. And we know that Trump doesn't like this deal. But what's very interesting about all of this is that thieves, no one knows who they are, well, they stole iridium-192 from Iran. The missing nuclear material could be used to maybe build a dirty bomb. And right now the IAEA is saying that it is missing, it is stolen, and nobody knows where it is. So where would they use this? Well, we know going back in time, Israel was testing dirty bombs out in the desert. Maybe they'll use this in Europe. Maybe they'll use this in the United States. But we can see that this could be part of a plan. This could be used to create this event. While this event is happening, the financial institutions could be cyber attacked and the economy could be brought down. We could be brought into war. So we don't know exactly what they have planned for this, but we do know that this is missing. It's confirmed from the IAEA, and most likely this is going to be used in some type of an event. We know that Europe has been telling the world that the Islamic State is planning an event. We know the agencies here in the United States have been saying there's lone wolf attacks from the Islamic State. And we can see they've been building over time the idea that more of these events are coming. And we can see we're reaching that point where Obama will be leaving office. The economy looks incredible. Trump is coming into office. Some of his policies they don't agree with. They want their war. They want to bring the economy down. They want a reset. And they've been planning something for quite a while. And we can see they are preparing, getting ready. And sooner or later, we will have this event which will kick off the collapse, the war, and the reset. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.